Question number 156. Among the following, which blood vessel has valves? And the options are systemic vein, systemic artery, hepatic artery and coronary artery. And the correct answer to this question is option number 1, systemic vein. Because we all know that valves are present in vessels that carry blood towards the heart. That means valves are present in veins. So the correct answer is systemic vein, which have valves to prevent backflow of blood. Rest of the options, systemic artery, hepatic artery and coronary artery, cannot be the correct answer because arteries lack valves. So the correct answer to this question is option number 1. Let's discuss our next question. Question number 157. Micturition occurs when? And the options are both urethral sphincters contract, both urethral sphincters relax, internal urethral sphincter contracts, urinary bladder relaxes and urethral sphincters contract. And the correct answer to this question is option number 2, both urethral sphincters relax. The stretching of wall of urinary bladder triggers micturition reflex for urination, in which urinary bladder contracts and both urethral sphincters relaxes. So the very first option, both urethral sphincters contract, cannot be a correct answer. Third option, internal urethral sphincter contracts, cannot be a correct answer because both internal as well as external urethral sphincter relaxes during micturition. And the last option, urinary bladder relaxes and urethral sphincters contract, cannot be a correct answer because urinary bladder contracts while both urethral sphincters relaxes during micturition. So the correct answer to this question is option number 2. Let's discuss our next question. Question number 158. Oophorectomy and hysterectomy refers to surgical removal of A and B respectively. Select the option which fill the blanks correctly. And the options given are uterus and ovaries, ovaries and uterus, fallopian tubes and uterus, uterus and fallopian tubes. And the correct answer to this question is option number 2, ovaries and uterus, because oophorectomy is surgical removal of ovaries, where oophorus means ovary and hystera means or represents uterus. So surgical removal of ovary is known as oophorectomy, whereas surgical removal of uterus is known as hysterectomy. So the correct answer is ovaries and uterus respectively. Let's discuss rest of the options. The very first option given is uterus and ovaries, and this cannot be a correct answer because surgical removal of ovaries is known as oophorectomy. The next option is fallopian tubes and uterus, and this cannot be a correct answer to our question because surgical removal of fallopian tubes is known as salpingectomy. This is surgical removal of fallopian tubes. The next option given is uterus and fallopian tubes, and this cannot be a correct answer to our question because surgical removal of fallopian tubes is known as salpingectomy. So the correct answer to this question is option number 2. Let's discuss our next question. Question number 159. Cells infected with HIV are CD4 positive in nature. They include, and the options are macrophages and helper T lymphocytes, T cells and B cells, cytotoxic T cells and macrophages, and killer T cells and natural killer cells or NK cells. And the correct answer to this question is option number 1, macrophages and helper T lymphocytes, because macrophages act like HIV factory and major cells infected by HIV are helper T cells and macrophages that bear CD4 receptors. So these are the cells which are infected by HIV. Let's discuss rest of the options. The next option is T cells and B cells, and this cannot be a correct answer to our question because major cells infected involves T cells but not B cells. The next option is cytotoxic T cells and macrophages. And this cannot be a correct answer to our question because cytotoxic T cells lack CD4 receptors. And the last option is killer T cells and NK cells. And this cannot be a correct answer because these cells lack CD4 receptors. So the correct answer to this question is option number 1. Let's discuss our next question. Question number 160. In blue-white selection method, white-colored colonies are identified as, and the options are transformed non-recombinant colonies, non-transformed recombinant colonies, transformed recombinant colonies, and non-transformed non-recombinant colonies. And we all know that insertional inactivation of XII gene results in colonies which do not produce any color. And so we say they produce white colored colonies. Now the very first option given is transformed and non-recombinant colonies. And this cannot be a correct answer to our question because transformed non-recombinants, which are insertless plasmid containing colonies, will produce blue colored colonies due to functional XII gene. The next option is non-transformed recombinant colonies, and this cannot be a correct answer to our question because non-transformed cells will die in presence of ampicillin. So this cannot be a correct answer to our question. Next option is transformed recombinant colonies, and this is a correct answer to our question because transformed recombinant colonies exhibit insertion inactivation of XII gene and results in formation of white colored colonies. Last option given is non-transformed and non-recombinant colonies, and this cannot be a correct answer to our question because non-transformed non-recombinant colonies will die in presence of antibiotics in media. So the correct answer to this question is option number 3. Let's discuss our next question.